The photography process can be very overwhelming at times. Making an image takes a significant amount of time, effort, and money. In this video, I'm gonna share a quick overview of my whole process, how I get from here, from sitting in my closet, to here, sitting in my closet with a final image in my hand. By the way, this is the current image of the month. It might look familiar because I made it very recently, just a few weeks ago in Michigan. I have a video that I'm gonna leave there. I'm also gonna leave the link in the description down below to my website where you can, if you want to, purchase a copy of this image. We are going to talk about how I plan my shots, how I take the images in the field, how I select the best ones, how I edit them, how I share them online, and how I make the final print. My one and only rule when it comes to photography is to spend as much time as possible outside, with a camera in hand, of course. No matter where you are, there's always an image to be made. That being said, over time, we might get used to our surroundings because there is nothing new to stimulate our imagination. So going to new places every once in a while is extremely beneficial for our photography. When it comes to new locations, I don't do any scouting. I usually open Google Maps and look for anything that could be interesting, and that could be a lake, a pier, a park, a building, or I just go on a hike. But basically, I just travel to the location and I go from there. And just to be clear, when I say that I don't plan any shots, that is true in 99.9% of the situations. The exceptions would be for sunrises, sunsets, or full moons. To know where those objects will be in the sky, I use an app called Sun Surveyor. Thanks to this app, I know that, for example, tomorrow the sun will be setting just behind downtown Chicago, so it could be a very interesting time to go to the Indiana Dunes and take a shot from there. I actually had this shot on my calendar, so I couldn't forget, but unfortunately it's gonna be cloudy, so that shot will have to wait a little bit longer. It's just an example of one shot that I will plan. Alright, once in the field, I'll just embrace whatever I might find. It is very important to not fight the conditions and the place where you are. If you had a shot in mind and it's not going to work because it's raining or because it's sunny, whatever it is, just look for other shots and don't get stuck on that one. I try to eliminate or at least reduce friction as much as possible. I always keep my camera out of the bag within reach just in case I run into some interesting scene. For the same reasons, when it comes to settings, I shoot in auto. I use program mode with my small compact cameras and aperture mode with my bigger full-frame camera. ISO is set to auto up to 6400, and I use autofocus with the autofocus point in the center. If I need to adjust anything with the exposure, I just use the exposure compensation dial. This way I can focus on what really matters, and that is the composition, the framing, my subject, the image, what I'm trying to say with my art. You know that I like to shoot in bad weather, and on those days conditions are always changing. They change really quick, so that's why I don't spare any shots. So, because I don't know what that cloud is gonna do in the next 5 minutes, because I don't know how the fog is gonna roll, I don't know if the snowstorm is gonna stop or it's gonna get worse, I just capture any image that I think I like as soon as I see it. And then I'll have plenty of time back at home to select the best ones. I work the scene quite a lot, especially if it's one that I like. I will approach it from different angles, trying different lenses. I'll try everything. Because I shoot a lot, I end up with a lot of images. I use Adobe Lightroom and their cloud solution to store all my raw files. I like it because it simplifies my workflow. I don't have to deal with external hard drives, and all of my images are hopefully secured in the cloud where I can access them from anywhere at any time using my phone or any other device that I might have with me. When I come back from a photography trip, hopefully I will have a handful of images that I really like. Those are the ones that I'm gonna work on initially and share on social media, on my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and here in my YouTube channel. At that point, I will also delete the obviously bad ones, those that are out of focus, those that are blurry, or those silly ideas that I had in the field that didn't really work out. I leave the rest of the images, those that could be potentially good, sit there, sometimes for a few weeks, sometimes for months, or even years. Actually, during the last few days, I've been going through some old images that I made in late 2019, I believe, and I found some that I really liked, and I shared them on my social media just now, 1.5 years later. So eventually all of my images will have to go through some filters. I make a first selection, then out of those I will make a second selection, third selection, fourth selection, fifth selection. That would be the final selection. I use the rating system in Lightroom, 1 star, 2 stars, and so on, until I get to the ones that I consider to be very, very good 5-star images. Those are the ones that will make it to my website, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. When it comes to editing, when it comes to post-processing, I try to keep it as simple as possible. And actually, I've shared a few videos in this channel before that you can go and watch. I have a preset that I apply to all my images. It's just a starting point, and then I go from there, tweaking every image as needed. I use mostly Adobe Lightroom because it has all the tools that I need, but occasionally I will use Photoshop if I have to do some more advanced cloning or something like that. The last step of the process is, of course, sharing our images. And you should share your images because that's what photography is about, right? To share what we felt, what we saw with others. This is personal though, so if you don't want to share your photography, that's totally fine. But if you do, there are more options today than ever before. I share my photography on social media. I use Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I do not use the apps to post on those platforms. I use Facebook's Creator Studio, I think that's the name, where you can schedule your Instagram images, and I just buffer to post the same images on my Twitter and Facebook accounts. I export those images to a size of 1000 by 1000 pixels, and then I add white borders around. I like to add those borders so there is some empty space around the images so they can breathe a little bit. While I'm a little bit more liberal with what I share on social media, my website is a more curated portfolio. Only the images that I make it through all the filters, the 5 filters that I have in my selection process, will eventually make it to this place, to my website. So many photographers nowadays will stop here. Just sharing their work online will be more than enough for them. But many of us like to see a physical copy of our work. I do prints and books. So because of my lifestyle, I don't really have a permanent home. I can't own a printer, so I use a professional lab. After a photography trip, I will order a big batch with the ones that I think are the best images from that trip, so I can take a look at them in real life and see what they look like and if I have to correct something. Once I like what I see, I can put them up for sale on my website. Prints are awesome because they are very high quality copies of your images, but I like books a lot because they are much more convenient. I've made 2 so far. This was the first one, Went West. It's more like a scene. My second book is this one, Becoming an American. I released it last year in 2020 during the pandemic because why not? I liked quite a lot making these 2 books. I learned a lot too, and that's why I felt that I was ready to make my third book that ironically is called One, is this one right here. This is my first coffee table book. The quality is higher than the other 2 books, but I will be talking about this one and announcing it officially very soon, not today. But anyway, this was, as I said at the beginning of the video, just a quick overview of my whole photography process from the very beginning to the very end, from nothing to the print, book, or Instagram post. I hope it was helpful, but if you have any questions about any step of the process, please leave a comment down below. I could also make a more detailed video about a specific step or something like that. But for now, thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.